Yeah, so we're starting Pachad Yitzchok Bays, which is Indian Bays, which is on page Lama Gimel. Hipia Puru Agaro, Lifnei Amon. So the pasuk translates itself. It says Pur is Garo. Dikte Karkosuv, the Kalim, Solon Gamas Shema Parsi, Gamas Tagamal Loshan HaKodesh. It's giving us the name both in Persian and Hebrew. Now, I think the only other time we find that in Tanakh, though I'm not that much of a bucky, is in the Parshas Vayetze, where it says that Yaakov Karolo Gal 8, Lavan Kalo Yagar Sadusa, the monument they placed. So here is a similar thing. It says the Hebrew and the Persian. Margishu Alev Tzorch Michaz Litom Tzas Min Advash Min Achalav. The heart feels a need to sense some of the milk and honey. Ashetachas LaLoshon HaParsi, which is underneath the Persian language, and Hatakos LaLoshon HaKodesh, and it's copying into Hebrew. Hisnagdusam Shumos Olam LiYisrael Usudersi B'Shnei Ma'arachos. Okay, so there's two campaigns which the non-Jews have against the Jews. Aleph, Mareches Arba Malchuyos. Campaign is probably the wrong term. So battles. Well, Mareches Arba Malchuyos, the battle of the four kingdoms, which are Bavel, Modai, Poras, Bavel, Poras, and Modai, Yavan, and Romi, which are the Daniel, which are prophesied in Daniel, the four Golios of Bavel, Poras, and Modai, Yavan, and Romi. Beis Shiva Amamim, the 7 nations in Eretz Canaan, Asher Yonon is Peish B'Torah Kambamim, which are in the Torah. Tachdam Shel Dvarim Ma'alot B'Pnim Yosam Kachu. This is the inner understanding of this. B'Chdei She'Eved Ya'aseh Ratzon Rabbo. In order for a slave to do the will of his master, he has to have two preconditions in order to do it. First of all, the master has to acquire a master slave. And has to let him know what to do. So there's the acquisition and the command. Otherwise, the Eved can't fulfill his master's directive. There's no master or nor directive. There's no way to fulfill the master's directive. Idea kniya, by being purchased, by being purchased, he is subjugated to the will of the master. By the master revealing what he wants, who knows how and what to serve it. Idea as Mitzrayim, by the redemption from Egypt. Now, we became Meshubad to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We are subservient to Hashem, Avdei Hashem, below Avdei Paro. This is a little bit of foreshadowing here, I assume, because Avdei Hashem, below Avdei Paro foreshadows the Gemara in Megillah, which says we don't say the Hallel on Purim because Akate Avdei Achashverosh Anu. We're still the Avodim of Achashverosh to this day. Okay, so we'll see if that's what he's foreshadowing. Aidei Matzator Yodime Misoba Melodo. So Yitzias Mitzrayim is the Kenyan, and the directive was the command was at Har Sinai. So again, the acquisition Yitzias Mitzrayim, the command at Har Sinai. What's Eretz Yisrael? Eretz Yisrael is the place, the optimal place for the avodah. The 4 kingships which put us in Galus. It is directed primarily towards towards our character, but over the Hashem, as the servants of God. In other words, by subjugating the Jewish people, it's negating their Abdus Hashem. It's going back to the situation of Avdei Paro, not Avdei Hashem. Could be there's, it's why Yisrael B'chutz La'aretz are called Ovdei Avodah Zarah B'Tara, because they are subject to the nation, the Sar of the nation in which their goal is taking place, besides being subjugated to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Avdei Paro, Avdei Nebuchadnezzar, Avdei Achashverosh, Avdei Antiochus, Avdei Titus. Right? Their entire purpose is to suppress the Jews. To the extent the person is held in captivity in another place, of Eved Hashem, he can't be called Eved Hashem because he's has some sort of intermediate sway over him. The purpose of Yitzchok is not to be avodim to avodim, but in Mitzrayim we were avodim to avodim. We came to Shara Malchios Mishabnim Yisrael, since the four Malchios subjugate the Jews. Vosi Mosamai Days Avodim Lavodim, and they become thus Avodim Lavodim. Mimelahem so Srim Es Mosam Yisrael, so they contradict the character of Yisrael of the Hashem. Shani Marechas Eis Nagdu Shivas Amam. This is different with the seven nations. Shem Loim Mishabnim Yisrael Kolika. There was no attempt to be Mishabed them, no attempt to subjugate the Jews. El Shloim Nechimas Yisrael. What they wanted to do is prevent the Jews. Lavol Eretz Yisrael. Shum. Excuse me 1 second. Shum Makom Avodas Yisrael, which is a place where Am Yisrael serves their master. So they want to prevent the actual service. So the position of the seven nations is not to our definition as Avdei Hashem, but rather to Shum Social Knesset, which is character of Am Yisrael. Want to prevent the actualization, the crystallization of that service. Each one of these oppositions has its own ratios. We find two nations, both of which are called ratios. The first nations in each order of opposition are respectively Amalek and Mitzrayim. Amalek, the first nation, first among nations. Yisrael, you were my firstborn is Yisrael, and refusing to send them away. This is in last week's parsha. I'm going to kill your firstborn. Now, the pasuk itself intrinsically doesn't tell us anything about Mitzrayim being racist, but he says, from the concept Makas Bechoros being applied to the Mitzrayim, Zel Umazeh, in parallel and opposite the Jews being called B'ni Bechori Yisrael. The Chachmei Emet said, "Ki Hashem Yisraelim Rashis B'tzara Kedusha," just like we are the Rashis in Kedusha. Kodesh Yisrael Hashem Rashis, so holy to God. The first of his crop, his produce, Kamochen so to Mitzrayim, Hem Rashis B'tzara Tumah. And I don't know if this is a pasuk. Rashis Onim B'Halei Shem. The first probably is a pasuk. In the back of the Pachad Yitzchok, he brings down the sources. Pasuk Tehillim, Ayin Ches Nun Aleph. So Rashis Onim B'Halei Cham. He is the first strength, the first power in the tents of Cham. B'shikas HaMachshava, in the normal thought, conventional thought, HaMetzia, which is prevalent. It seems like these two rashis, these two firsts, Shamitzrayim Shamalek, Ketor Mishdaf are like a common description, She'ein Bo Chiluk Mashmos, which has no ramification. But we know that Rav Hutner is not going to go with that. Havalein Tzedachon Klau Klau. It's incorrect, totally. Kamur, as he said, Kol Achas Mishtei HaRashis Halolu. Each one of these two forms of rashis, misyacheses el hi lamarocha acheres, is relevant to one of these two systems, hamishtarchim rakileh ubimsiyam, to which it is intrinsically related, and not to the other one. Kichinuya rashis the Mitzrayim. When it says rashis as Mitzrayim, for Mitzrayim. He's the first of the ones who wants to subjugate the Jews. We move Avdei Hashem, or at least intercede between Avdei, insinuate himself between Avdei Hashem and Am Yisrael, so it will be also Avdei Paro, to change the character of the Jewish people. The Amalek corresponds to the other system. Amalek is not interested in subjugating us. They're interested in annihilating us. But the point is that we're not supposed to be their avodim. They might even concede the character of Am Yisrael. We know the Sforim say that Haman recognized Yeshno Amecha Mefuzim Mefud Min Amim, and he understood that. He has to tell Kodesh Baruch Hu, even though this is your Am Nifchar, I have an alternative suggestion for you. So Amalek doesn't have a problem recognizing that that Am Yisrael is special. They just want to eliminate them, or at least prevent their functioning as a proper nation. So Amalek is the first Marech says Nag Shivas Amrim. Perush Mashal Dvarim Elu Kachu. This is how to explain it. Mitzrayim Bechinas Reishis Beseder Arba Malchios. Mitzrayim is the first among the four nations, kingships. They nation. Od Sharba Malchios Bola Koras Tator Shel Avdei Hashem. As the four Malchus came to uproot the description of Avdei Hashem Shel Knesset Yisrael, of the Jewish people, Acharesha Torah Azeh Yadovukla, the Knesset Yisrael Mikvar Degulas Mitzrayim. They tried to do it, the other four nations, after Am Yisrael achieved its level of Avdei Hashem with its Yetzias Mitzrayim. You name Mitzrayim Atzmo, it's why it's gracious. Because Mitzrayim itself is Nagdah, was opposed to Ascholas Achalos. So they were opposed to the very bestowal of that description of the Jewish people. When we pass the Mechuvra Eitayim, so this is very clear how Mishum Mitzrayim, Bechinas Reishis, is the first Memarechas Nagdush Arba Malchios, in that system of the resistance of the four kings. The Gam Bechinas Reishis Tam Malech Marechas Nagdush Shiva Amamim. Amalek's place as the head of the Isnagdus of the seven nations becomes clarified this way. The opposition of the seven nations, is an opposition to the actual divine service of the Jewish people. After the master revealed his ratzon, how to serve him. Name Torah, it's coming to be mocked in Rafula to prevent the Am Yisrael from getting those commands. Wants to prevent the revelation of the master, or the revelation of the masters to the slave to command and direct him. So Amalek is the first. Marecha says Nagdus. It's this Rishon this Rishis is like by Pesach we say Ach Bayom Rishon Tashbishu Sor Mitoch Botechem. Even on the first day you should remove leaven from your house. And we say there, Chazal say that Rishon there means the day before. In other words, there's a Rishon which means number one, and a Rishon means -1. So this is the same Rishon here by Amalek and what you call Mitzrayim, the preceding, the -1. So it comes out that the concept of Amalek is a rachis. B'marechas in the system of Bisnagdus havoda before mamish, the resistance to the actual avoda shall we saw the Jewish people. And Soif also comes out the Mitzrayim say the place of Mitzrayim in the order of the four kingdoms. Mechuvanu mamish lumas Amalek is literally parallel to the place of Amalek, the Seder Shiva Amim in the system of the seven nations. So too, because of this, Gam Amalek and Mitzrayim, they're both called Rashis. But there's a difference depending on the subject. Dok v'timtza, you'll find, if you are infer carefully, Sharba Malchus Kruz Hein Shema Malchus. They're called Malchus, kingship. Because Shiva Am Yikrim Hein Shema Am, they're called nations. Bediluk Inya Malchus, the concept of kingship is skipped. This is Rav Hutner's Gainus. You know, that after you see it, it's Pachad. But before you see it, you don't realize that we medayik it. The difference between an Am and a Malchus. But there, says Rav Hutner, there's a difference. Kimarecha, Amen, what is saying? Kimarecha says Nagish Arba Malchios. The opposition of the four Malchios, and we touch him Shabbos Yisrael, because they subjugate the Jews. Mishabed is also Shaykh Malchus. But Mishabed, another nation, the Malchus of one nation, takes charge and governs the other nation. It remains another nation, the second nation, but it's governed by this nation. In other words, when one nation conquers another, let's say when Germany conquered Poland, so Poland remained a nation, but it wasn't with its own Malchus anymore. Malchus was the Malchus of Germany. So that is Malchus over an Am. The Am exists, but the Malchus is its governance, its controlling body. Masha Enkain, opposed to Isnagus Lavoida, when the opposition to Avoida, doesn't necessarily have to come from the king or the king government. The nation itself. It's kindness. And also in Am Yisrael we find that we find in language of Chacham, they too speak about two types of Kabbalah. Shekach amru b'mechilta divrei rishon nochei Hashem Elokecha asher tzeicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. This is the Medrash. Whatever Chazal means. Gemara on the first Dibra. Hashem Elokecha asher tzeicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. Kibaltem malchusi. You accepted my malchus. Kablu gzerosai, accept my decrees. There's the malchus itself, and then the decrees which come from the malchus. The acquisition and the commandments. Harei shechilku ben kabbalos. Chazal distinguish between the two kabbalos. The korol achas kabbalos malchus. They call one acceptance of the kingship of Hashem. Ulashni on the second one, kabbalos hagzeros, accepting the decrees of Hashem. Hainu kanal. What we said. Kabbalos malchus hainu etzem achalos she'atorah of Hashem. To accept malchus is to accept the bestowal of the description of Amisos Ad Hashem. The Kabbalah's exeris and accepting the decrees, in case of avodah before mamish, is how to do the service in practice. The Mashteh Kabbalahs halalu. Corresponding to these two Kabbalahs, in Shtei Marocha says not L'Shumas Olam. We find the two oppositions of the nations of the world, Hamavuros Le'el, which are explained above. Let's do one more paragraph for tonight. Kimmel, Fisi John Shamalchios. First Sefer Daniel, according to the order of the Malchus and Sefer Daniels, we have them. Rumi retained in Roman goals. And since we know, it's a situation of one sheep. Benchim is among 70 wolves. Oh, I skipped above there. And therefore, we can't really attribute our goals to one specific malchus, because we have lots of malchus who control us. Therefore, we're accustomed to Hashem Golus Rovi to explain the name, the Roman Golus, meaning Bemuvan Hascholas Golus. Without the Roman Edom aspect, but just on a Pachad level, Rome started us off in this Golus, so therefore it's called Golus Romi. Rome destroyed our base of Mikdash, and took us an extra farm land. And as a result, all the 70 wolves followed From the time the Romans took control over us, so the intent in this name Rome, was the first cause. For the Golus among the 70 wolves. But in truth, ain't Hashem goes so perish. Remove on Haschos Hagolus Cloud. It's not true. Rome is not called. It's not called Golus Rome because it's the beginning. The Yom Ramban. It's one of the rare times Maral quotes a source. The Parashas Arba Bas Melchimus Avraham, where the 4 kings went to war against Avraham Avinu. And before Shubha Chazal, and it's also Chazal, the Gam Arba Melachim Alolu, that these 4 kings, the Drushman Inyan Arba Malchios Hasidus Shabbos Yisrael. These 4 kings, Kedar Omer, Melech Shinar, Tito, Melech Goyim, etc. I don't remember the other 2 offhand. Melech Beli, so was the last one. I don't remember the 3rd one. But in event, these 4 kings correspond to the 4 Golios of Bavel, Paras, Yavon, and Romi. The last one who Tidam Melech Goyim. Strange thing, right? Melech Goyim. Was obviously he's a Melech of a nation that says nations and doesn't even give us the name of one of those nations. Pirish Ramban Sharbusa b'Melech Zu Ushu Melech Chamim Shonim. It's a king on many different nations. Goyim Lashon Rabim Dafka. These 2. Chazam was a Melech Goyim. Ze Edom corresponds to Rome. Shekoseves Truni Olam Olam, which writes prosecution to the nations of the world. Flomar, meaning, Edom, all the kingdoms before Edom, they're all in one place, in one locality. Although I don't know how this works with Alexander the Great. It could be that Alexander is not considered to be the Golus part of the Greek conquest, but rather when the rulers in turn of Syria or of Egypt, who were generally from the Greek Ptolemies or Seleucids, whatever the name was, and they were local. They weren't the actual Greeks from Greece or Macedonia. They were local. Maybe that's part of it. I don't know. But he says that all the other Malchus was one Malchus, a specific Malchus. Maybe you can also say that Greece is one governing entity, whereas the Romans incorporated many nations in their governing entity, but I don't know if that's true. Anyway, let's see what it says. Tidal had this characteristic of being a general king over nations. And his opposition to himself, it's not just in one place of his, of the boundaries of his kingdom. His opposition is a venomous seduction, which expands the merchakim shkamim throughout all the nations. Because if truni al-chol masolam, right, to prosecution against us to all the nations, to put within them samadoisa, the elixir of death, of the opposition Jewish people. And it's such a great power of persuasion of the other nations, that he's given the description as the king of many nations. His government of hatred, transcends physical borders and societal borders. The Yoskal saying B'Shem Golus Romi, if that's the case, our goals being called Golus Romi, if it's linked back to Tito Melkoim, it's explained as follows. The prosecution which Edom sends to all the nations expands from Rome. So it could be the shot is like this, that Tito Melkoim was the king over many nations, spread over much space. And Rome is, so to speak, the king over many nations, spread over much time. In other words, Tito was the leader of many nations at the same time. Rome was Kosevich Trunya caused many nations to to put on its own servitude, to subjugate the Jews throughout time. The space-time continued. It comes to Rome not necessarily from Rome the city, but from the Roman culture, which is the basis of contemporary society. Okay, now Shnei Hashemos Golus Romi, the Golus Edom, and that's why Golus Romi, Golus Edom became Shemos Mischalfim Be'Lushonenu. They became interchangeable because Golus Edom connotes this idea of there being this, according to Chazal, that Edom is Christianity or Western culture. So therefore, Golus Romi and Golus Edom are linked together. Okay, so that's so far what we have. We'll stop here for this evening. Is we have the ideas of the two systems, the system of the four Golios versus the system of the Shiva Amamim. One has to do with the Shem Yisrael, Shem of Avdei Hashem. The other has to do with the capacity of B'Ovid Hashem. We have also the four Malachim in Bereshis who correspond to the four Golios, and the Tidam El Goyim corresponds to Romi, and I will see where we go with this next week. Okay, Shkoyach Rabbi Say.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Have a good night, Rabbi.
Thank you. Have a good night, Rabbi.